Good afternoon, friends and comrades. Welcome to MC Railways again. As you've noticed from the title that our video we are playing today is on one of the most significant professional courses of this era. You can have potentially got offered a place to study in university. That's electrical and electronic engineering. Are you ready to see this? Anyway, let's get into the topic real quick. Our video we are playing here endeavor about how this professional course for undergraduate is recommended. However, it's about how it's introduced scrappy practice on students. If you've not watched an older video we've legally pasted on YouTube, check that out. The link to it is pasted below and is staying if the firewalls of the Five Eyes haven't had it for their dinner. This video would have never been born if fraudulent actions have not been introduced on me from my directors. Well, before I was following the footprints of my favorite channel to a depth of development of a tool to further enhance the anti-spying policies on Windows 10, and the video for it would be born soon, but the project has to be suspended as I've been downloading an independent source code of open source 64-bit app. The 64-bit app is independent and still enhances security in another way, which would facilitate my project. I was downloading the source codes to deploy that app for Windows 10 in the computer lab where I can access JIT. I had to perform electrical tests on my U2011 series I/O board, which I've previously built last year in winter, and obviously, as you can see, the piezo sounders are right, and the connections are okay, the buttons are functioning alright. By the time it was built, it came with perfect quality. And when I was doing the test, I found that even though when it was originally built, it was perfect, there were bugs. For example, one of the 7-segment LEDs, which you see there on the right, is not illuminating correctly. That was one problem that stuck with this piece of board after a couple of months of not touching it at all. Last time I've ever touched this was by the time of last winter. Its quality was still perfect by then, and each of the individual lights, including piezo sounders, were all working normally. And now, because the problem stuck, the electrical tests were not able to be completed. Let's find out how the problem has been affecting this board and threatening my great project on Windows 10. First of all, it was not only one thing but 4 tasks that were altogether threatening my great project. As you can see here, the very first test was to test how the lights are functioning on the board. Let's get into it real quick. Let's find this very piece of reset button on this PIC 18F8722 microcontroller board. Let's hit that, and you notice that all of the 8 individual red LEDs were functioning right, illuminating one by one in order, and both of the 7-segment digital LED displays were functioning as required in the other way, except that very piece of segment LED, which is permanently not illuminating And basically, there were no problems with its original control codes, and there were neither problems with other components, including the previously tested piezo sounder and the 8 red individual LEDs. Next mission, P2. It asks us to test whether the push button PB1 is functioning right by pushing it. As we push it and hold it, as you can see, the logic of this whole system has been inverted. Only one of the segment LEDs on both of these illuminate each time, whereas the 8 individual red LEDs behave in the other way. Only one of them is turned off each time, except that very piece of segment LED that's not turning on when it should. So it's clear that the push button's functioning alright. Only that piece of segment LED is affecting the test. Next mission, P3. P3 asks us to test the function of push button PB2. As we press and hold PB2, it would be now we've released it, and as we can observe that the direction of how these LEDs illuminate one by one have been reversed, and the direction of the 8 red individual LEDs to turn off one by one has been reversed as well. This means that the function of push button PB2 is behaving properly, except still that very piece of segment LED still does not illuminate by the time it should be illuminating. I mean that one. And let's reach the final mission, P4. Because basically, after 3 tests, the only problem was with that very piece of segment LED. P4 is an interesting mission. It asks you to test more functionalities on the push buttons. So let's first do the PB1 part by pressing and holding it. There we go. The logic's reversed, and only the 7-segment display on the left called U1 is working on this piece of board, because the connection is only to that specific 7-segment display, except by the time the 5th red LED counting from left shows, there's a bit of shadow on the 7-segment display on the right. This means the functions of both the push button PB1 and the 7-segment display on the left of the I/O board called U1 are functioning right, including the 8 individual red LEDs. Next, let's switch to PB2 and test it. As we press and hold PB2, it's only U2, the 7-segment LED on the right, is working. Without reversing the logic from last time, the direction of how these LEDs illuminate is reversed, and the 7-segment LED's behavior has been, well, same as the one last time, except the direction is reversed. Which means the logic of the system didn't change, wasn't reversed. So this means the functions of both push buttons, all 8 red individual LEDs, the piezo sounder, the 7-segment display U1 are all functioning alright, except that very piece of 7-segment LED component on U2 that is not functioning when it should be. Oh, this wasn't the worst of the problem. By yesterday, the directors enforced me to go to the electronics club to get it repaired, which is gonna be sure to waste 3 hours of my life again. And the problem came from nowhere because I've not touched this board, which I built with perfect quality last winter. The problems didn't exist back then during those electrical tests of connecting and linking the board to another board to insert conduction wires in to test the functions of all the components on the board. It was perfect back then, but now the ghostly problem just appeared from nowhere after not touching this board for a couple of months. This indicates a signal that the directors may not be as responsible as most students think they should. So, I as an engineer would never suggest anybody to aim for electrical and electronic engineering for university until you are mentally robust enough for any possible outcomes from studying this. Avoid electrical and electronic engineering until you are mentally robust enough for it. Have a good day and good luck for your university application.